MedTech Startups. Top mistakes that will stunt your growth.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. And can I ask first our panelists to introduce themselves? Jacqueline.
So pleased to meet. My name is Jacqueline van Druten. I'm from CLIN-r and I'm the Clinical Regulatory Affairs Director.
Thank you. Michael.
Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Mike Branagan-Harris, CEO and founder of Device Access UK. We're based in Southampton in the south of England. Great to see you today. Over to you, Claudia.
Thank you. My name's Claudia Holy. I'm the Managing Director of Podymos. We're a specialist marketing agency based in the UK, but work with companies globally.
Thank you very much for the great introduction. So today we are going to discuss the key and main mistakes startup medical tech innovations that they can have, which mainly, as you know, could delay their market entry. They could really undermine their strategy from their marketing point of view and their marketing efforts. And this, unfortunately, sometimes these mistakes could compromise their company value and compromise any future investor. So if I can start with you, Michael, could you please provide us with your insight? What kind of these top mistakes these startup can have? And your insight as well about what kind of impact these mistakes could have on these startup.
Yeah, sure. A little bit more background to me. I've been in medical devices since 1989 and helped to bring in a number of technologies prior to setting Device Access up. So I've been involved in this journey on the ground with devices like the lap band, the Da Vinci robot, Venus Medical, endovascular grafts. So I've got a sort of many years experience in bringing technologies into our healthcare system, the National Health Service. And what we do at Device Access is help to get companies nationally recommended through NICE, which is the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence. So we're always looking for leading technologies to help to solve problems in our healthcare system. The National Health Service, which is currently under huge pressure because of the pandemic and about 7.5 million patients waiting on the waiting list. So very passionate about the industry, very passionate about bringing these great class-leading technologies into our healthcare system. So I've seen so many things. I could spend hours talking about this, but I've tried to sort of focus in on this, so I'm not the only person speaking this afternoon. But I suppose it starts with really, the first thing I want to say is the biggest winners and losers in this game are patients and investors. And all of us in this room, if there are any investors here or people on the in-between, you know, every day matters, and you know, we're great in what we do, but people do make some colossal mistakes. I'll start off with the theory, and I've got to be very careful here because Claudia works in marketing and communications. So if I said the principles of marketing is product, price, place, promotion, I really don't think that's the right approach. And I'll talk about the solution when I'm asked the next question. But I think the principles of marketing don't work. The lack of understanding the value drivers of technology at the earliest stage is really disastrous. I've seen too many companies fail where there's this belief that a healthcare system will buy something that is cheaper. And cheaper is getting very boring to hear companies go out there and say, I've got a product, it's cheaper. So automatically thinking that a healthcare system will buy it, automatically devaluing all the work and the efforts that have gone into producing, you know, these technologies. And I see it all the time where, you know, you guys produce these class-leading technologies, and then when it comes down to bringing them to market, very talented salespeople haven't got the value story together, and they end up talking to procurement managers that buy gloves, crepe bandages, cornflakes, and milk. And that's where the negotiation starts, and it's normally a downward pricing negotiation. So the inability to sell the problem you solve, not the product, is one of the big things that many medtech companies are incapable of selling the problem that they solve. So just wanted to mention that one. The reliance on physicians to do studies, to go along and talk to these key opinion leaders who aren't necessarily commercially minded. The reliance on these clinicians that work in public healthcare systems and private healthcare systems to design studies that make all the difference that come together when you use these studies. And the other question I ask companies is, why are you doing this study? Who is it for? Is it for the clinician, or is it for a health technology appraisal? Because there's some uncertainty about what they're doing that for. The understanding of the PICO framework, which is population, intervention, comparator, and outcome. Understanding who needs the technology, understanding what the standard of care is, or what the other comparator treatments are, and trying to get an understanding of the outcome benefits that their technology would bring as early as possible. So we use this PICO framework to help companies to focus on what they need to bring to build this proposition to get these products out to patients faster. So that's my sort of key ones. Principles of marketing, I'm not sure work. Understanding the value drivers early on, and I'll go into that in the next questions. Running appropriate studies, relying on physicians, understanding the population, intervention, comparator, and outcome framework. And yeah, again, who are you running these studies for? Who's it for? So that's my view. I shall hand over to...
Thank you very much, Michael. That's really important from market access point of view, but we need always to understand what kind of regulations do we need to follow. That's why I would love to hear from Jacqueline about your top advice about these mistakes, and what are these mistakes, and how can these impact actually from regulation point of view.
So I have to agree with Michael Harris. This alignment that is not from the start there when this innovation idea comes across is seriously lacking, and it's probably the root cause in why we are having so many trouble when we go to different regulatory jurisdictions and we're applying for our submissions for clearance, that maybe some of the terminology we won't understand. So I think there's a key document that the manufacturers are not utilizing, or innovators are utilizing early on. And this is a clinical development plan. It was recently introduced to the EU MDR. It's not a new document as far as innovation in medical technology is concerned, because it's been introduced in biotech and also pharma with great success. And what this document allows is that early on when you have an idea, you're asked to say, what problem do you solve? And how can you prove that you're solving this problem? It doesn't matter which regulatory jurisdiction you go to, there will be a different way that they will ask exactly the same questions or ask you to define exactly the same things. So for me, the top thing that we are seeing is there's not an early on alignment with the clinical needs. And from the clinical needs, we need granularity. I need to know what your safety and performance data will look like to be able to show that you meet that clinical need. And the safety and performance data, often people think it's just clinical trials, but actually, you can also, with your technical bench studies, there are performance and safety parameters that you can also use during that stage as evidence. A big thing that the clinical development plan also provides is what is termed under EU MDR, that is the state of the art. So the state of the art is basically what is the current standards of care. So the state of the art, what it will give you is basically any, if you've got a type of device and you're going for an indication, let's say some kind of condition, you want to know what is the other devices that compete against you. You can actually take some of the insights from those devices of safety and performance, and you can take it into your design to say, actually, I can have these key features on my device that I don't have the same side effect profile than my direct competitors. The state of the art will also allow you to see the healthcare environment and the alternative treatments that compete against you as well. In that document. But the clinical development plan is a life cycle management document that helps from concept to regulatory approval, to commercialization, to extending your indications. It will help you through that journey, and it will also help you map out the stakeholders along the way.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Of course, always when you have the market access and the regulation, the key aspects for all the companies is how I can think of the marketing efforts and how can I build the right marketing strategies for my business. So I think this will lead me to you, Claudia, as an expert in this field. So how do you think, what are these top mistakes that can influence the startup?
So I think everything that we've heard on the panel actually, often people think that marketing come in quite late in the game when it comes to medical devices. But in fact, they should come in really early in the game. And I think that's often something that's missed. And why do I say this? Because we see too many companies who come to market and they don't have the really strong claims that are going to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. And what does that do? That obviously totally stifles your impact within the market. So, how do we avoid that? And that's really marketing coming in early to have a look at what claims you really want to be able to say and really have a myriad of claims. So, everything that you would ideally want to say. And then how are we actually going to build that into what we're going to talk about, next, which is your clinical development plan. But I think, whenever we look at there's two main things. Obviously, there's the clinical side of things, but it's really about, threading a sort of a thread through many needle holes. So making sure that everything you plan for at the beginning, covers your reimbursement, covers your regulatory, covers your, and your marketing claims when you get there as well. So I think that's the biggest problem that we see, that people don't start early enough with marketing, and then when they come to market, they come with one hand behind their back, because they come to agencies like ourselves and say, this is what we want to do, and we say, but your claims don't say that, your data doesn't say that, you can't say that. So I think there's, that's one thing that we see. I think the other thing that we see, and we see this across the board in the majority of companies, is too complicated messaging. So, you might have a fantastic product, but you've got to tell it in a really simple way to your audience so that everybody understands it immediately. And I think that's often a challenge that does cause problems when startups, go for investment rounds, go into market as well. And, I think it's because often people know so much about their technology, it's not simplified enough so people understand it immediately and understand how it's going to help them. Mike, as you say, it's about solving the problem, not the features and benefits.
And I can say that the regulator also wants a very simple, clear message of what is the clinical need you are addressing. So I don't think it's dissimilar.
Totally, and I think, so that's sort of, everything falls in a line. But I'd say those are the big things we see, but it's really not getting marketing involved early enough to really help guide that journey as well. And it's not much getting marketing involved. I think it's not a big involvement at all. It's just getting those people involved early. And actually, that's what we've heard through many of the panels that I've listened to this morning as well. It's saying getting people involved early, to help guide that process.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much, Claudia. I think now, if I've got a fantastic product, so really I need to think how to avoid these mistakes and how early is the key questions. So again, if I can start with Michael, can you please provide us with your insight how early we should think and plan our market access?
Yes, thank you. Well, over the years and 13 years of working predominantly with North American companies, I've experienced all sorts of different mechanisms of bringing technologies to market. And one of them taught me what I believe are the principles of market access, which are very different to the principles of marketing, the traditional product, price, place, promotion. These principles of market access actually have 4 Ps in our healthcare system and 5 Ps in a US system, and they are demonstration of benefit to patients, demonstration of benefit to care providers, demonstration of benefit to payers, and demonstration of benefit to the product, which is about profit. In the US, there's another P, and that's physician, because they often have to gain by doing something new. And those 4 pillars, you know, we saw an example with a technology which would reduce the frequency of injections for age-related macular degeneration. We got the patients were very excited about it. The payers were very excited about it. The company was very excited about it. But by reducing certain activity in the provider area and reducing business activity, it led to there only being 3 pillars, and the company didn't proceed because the hospitals weren't seeing the numbers of cases that they would have been seeing, even though it was better for the payer. So these 4 principles of market access of ensuring that you're benefiting patients, things like less invasive, less pain, faster recovery, reduced length of stay, the benefits to the provider of care. The hospitals want fast ambulatory day case, less use of expensive staff, keeping people out of intensive care, faster discharge. So operational gain is the big thing that our healthcare system is looking for, and it's always been very good at adopting fast, minimally invasive technologies. The provider, and this is where so many companies miss out, is the payer, and this is where so many companies miss out on, is the payer of care looks after that patient for their life, whether they're, you know, very young or whether they're old, and their budget in particularly our healthcare system is you know, limited, but obviously their job is to care for that patient. So what many medtech companies forget is often a more expensive intervention at the front end is cost saving for the payer long term. And I think one of those examples I'd like to share with you was the work we did with a company in San Jose called SciBone. And SciBone had an implant which was for sacroiliac joint pain. The comparator to this treatment was painkillers and physiotherapy. When the company came into the hospitals and started showing a rather expensive several £1,000 implant for this pain problem, you know, by talking to procurement managers, it was a brand new thing. They'd never seen it before. It was more expensive than a box of cornflakes and some great bandages, so why should we buy it? And so they had to rethink their strategy, and luckily I was involved. We took the product to NICE, and we showed after 8 years that the technology was cost neutral, and the NHS bought into it. And patients were very supportive of it, and the product got to market, and the company achieved a good selling price. The patients benefited, the hospitals benefited because of the, you know, not having these patients coming back for appointments and physiotherapy and painkillers, and so, you know, and the payer benefited. So, you know, these are sort of examples of where many medtech companies don't think of the cost benefit, and they're often looking for saving money, the actual payers of care, trying to work out that patient's long-term benefit of having a new therapy, which are the sorts of things that we get involved in. So that's, and then the product benefit. The product benefit is about optimizing price, but maximizing access of the technologies that need, maximizing the access of the technology to the patients who need it the most. Optimization of price is really important. Price and profit are the foundation of your companies, and so many companies think that, well, I'll be $5 less than the competitor or this. If their product's twice as good, then why should you be cheaper? And I think the interesting comparison I'll make is, when do you ever see a pharmaceutical company spending hundreds of millions of dollars inventing a drug and then turning up in a healthcare system and saying, what would you pay for this? Or, you know, the pharmaceutical companies always do their health economics first. And it's quite simple. You study the comparator, you do all the research into how well the standard of care or comparator products work, and then you build in a model where you can look at how your product would perform against them, put it into a proper cost model, and out of the cost model come the value drivers. And the value drivers tell you 2 things, and they're really important. So many companies miss out on doing health economics. The first part of it is, where are the value drivers? Where are the value drivers for the technology? Is and the second part of it will tell you, with those outputs of the model, is what you need to do your studies in. So instead of doing a study around what a clinician wants, which may not align to what the HTA body want or the regulators want. Think about your business, and what you need to do is understand how well your product needs to perform to achieve the highest selling price you can get. And once you've validated the model, you publish it to show the world, the market, the country that your device is affordable. So missing out on proper, extensive health economics is probably one of the most damaging things that companies forget to do. And as I say, this is nothing new. Pharmaceutical companies have been doing this for decades. So economics should come very, very early in the design phase of bringing your technology to market. So pharma strategies, principles of market access. And I second what Claudia was saying about claims of evidence. We worked with somebody from NICE, who sadly retired recently, but he worked at NICE for 11 years, which is our HTA body. And you know, the first thing that HTA bodies do is look at companies' websites to see what the product says it can do, and then they look for evidence of claims of benefit or evidence to match the claims. And yeah, that's where it's always a balancing act, and getting the right advice early on is so important. So that's my sort of thing. Do the right studies. Do you need to do randomized control studies, or is that just what the doctor wants you to do? Because in our healthcare system, the NHS, the use of real-world evidence is becoming more and more important. But we in the UK have an unfair advantage in that we have data, claims data, running through the entire system. So we know how patients are treated, where they're treated, we know the comorbidities, we know the outcomes, length of stay, readmissions, outcomes, costs, and we also have a lot of detail now about the waiting list and the pressures in the system. So it's a lot easier to sort of work out in the UK what problem the technology that can solve than many other markets that don't have that level of claims data running through it. So I could talk for ages. I'm going to hand back to Saeed, but they're my sort of how to avoid mistakes and the solutions of what you should think about.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael. Clearly, when we say how early, me as a startup, the first thing I should think of is the regulation, my clinical data. So how early I should start, Jacqueline?
So I would say, usually when people talk about regulations, it's where all your hopes and dreams disappear. And it doesn't need to be so. How early? I have to second Mike on that. The health economics and your value proposition is extremely important, and it's probably what got you into this field of work in the first place. And this is a field that is going to help you through this very, very long journey. How early for me, the clinical development plan is basically the seed of all the technical documents you'll be submitting or dossiers to your regulators. The clinical development plan has a segment that starts with market access, but it's got a prior step where we define the state of the art. So currently, what is the standards of care in different regions of the world? Who are you competing against? And what is their safety and performance profile looking like? Which aligns with exactly what Michael Harris is saying, is that also the regulators are looking for the benefit-risk ratio. Benefit is your performance. Risks is your safety that you're looking at. We are all talking about the exact same thing. So that clinical development plan is a very good place, even initially, if it's just all the ideas that you have, it's a good kind of parking ground to put those, I think I can go for that indication, and what about that market? As you're talking to clinicians and they're getting excited about, I think we have a different use maybe for your innovation over here, before you get too excited and you think, okay, I like this clinician, I'm going to go and do studies with him. First go back to your clinical development plan, look at your state of the art, and kind of look, is that a good market for you to be in? So my message would be start as early as possible, get a good format for a clinical development plan, because it will open up each and every chapter of market access, your clinical data that you need, clinical investigation planning, what is going to be the outcome of your marketing message, and these chapters will open as you go through your journey.
Great, yeah, thank you very much. So clearly, the message is clear for you now, Claudia, how I do the marketing. as early as I can.
I think everyone's spoken for me almost here. I mean, as we said before, it is starting as early, but I think, sometimes when it's starting early, we don't need a very heavy involvement. It really is guidance. And I think one thing that we haven't touched on the panel, I think, Mike, what you say about the value drivers and the PICO analysis is the guiding star for marketing claims moving forwards, because it's going to show you which areas you can potentially go in and where you're going to drive the most value. And that will help you show what claims you want to potentially then prove within your clinical data. So it will drive your entire clinical development plan. So it really is like the shining star of where you need to go by starting with the PICO analysis and really knowing where just where you want to go. I think one thing that we haven't touched on, though, is it's not all about just getting to commercialization. I mean, for some companies it is, and that will be the end goal. But actually, by doing this correctly to start off with, not only are you getting there faster, because you're not going to have to unwind anything that's been done. And I know I've heard that on other panels this morning as well. So it's actually a lot more cost effective to start early because you continue on that right line. But it's also about when you get to market, what are those continual claims that you want to make over years 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? That may not be totally within your remit at the moment of where you want to get to. But if you know how you're going to differentiate yourself, and you have that real clear plan and you continue moving your clinical development plan, nobody can touch you when you enter market. So it's actually a really exciting proposition to start all this very early and get to the stage where you really are untouchable when you get to market. And I think it's not done, I think from our experience, and we can only talk about our experience, but from our experience, I think it's not done nearly enough, which gives a huge opportunity to everybody who does. It is, I can't say enough, it's starting early, but it can be a very light touch. So I think a panel earlier said, understand who's in the market, understand, who has worked with other startups, understand who's dedicated to MedTech and can help guide you through this journey, because although you won't maybe use them straight away now, they're there when you need them in the future. But they can just, as I've said all along, guide the journey so that you don't trip up along the way and have to redo stuff, because I think that's one thing that we all see. Not smoothly passing through all the barriers, especially in health economics, we see it.
It's a really important point now, if I come in to say, because, I work with many device companies, again, predominantly North American ones, and, they launch a product and then they go and talk to a load of doctors, and before they know it, they look at using it in about another 3 different indications, and they get very excited, and they seem to be driven by what the clinician says a lot, but doing the early health economics helps you to work out what the value drivers are, and you can also start looking at the use of a technology in different indications and work out where you can, optimize the selling price but maximize the access of the technology to the right patients as soon as possible. So I think, the distraction and I'm not saying, don't talk to clinicians or anything like that. I'm saying, try and think of these clinicians often don't have your commercial pressure and strategy. They don't understand what you need to do to assure what the payers and the providers need. Important to think of that.
But they should also be involved in that initial group.
Absolutely, yeah. But there has to be a focus, and I think that's where early health economic modeling helps companies to focus on where they should be going with their technology to achieve, with the runway of cash that many of these people have, to make sure that it's spent appropriately and you succeed and have a profitable company that has a higher valuation.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you very much. This is really great discussions, but I think now for our startup and our audience, it's really important to hear your insights, guys, about what are these strategies that can help me as a startup to think of to have a great market access. Michael.
Yeah, I sort of repeat really about the importance of early health economic modeling. I can't name devices here, but I'll give you an example of a couple of really interesting examples. One of them was a US-based company with a device that was able to triage stroke in the out of hospital, and it was about getting those patients to thrombectomy sooner. and their value proposition was that they wanted to sell it at a certain price, but we actually managed to demonstrate that they could have sold that for 5 times more than their price that they thought they were going to get for it. So, and that's because if you triage patients to stroke sooner, the healthcare system has the payer has far less costs looking after these patients in the community, the inability for these people to live independently. And so it's looking at the whole long-term costs that many device companies miss out. You know, I've seen devices out there that talk about being 2 and 3 times better, but who's that better for? Patient, provider, payer. Separate and work out where you can really bring those key value bits together, and don't think that it's going to be easier if it's cheaper. Sometimes it requires a complex health economic publication to convince payers that by paying more for something, the long-term costs are lower, and don't devalue your product, because that's what happens, sadly, too much. So, again, sell the problem you solve, not the product. And you know, again, the biggest winners and losers in this game are patients and investors. But, you know, I just wanted to say, keep on with your great work out there. I think as industry, we often don't appreciate the difference that we do make for people and their lives out there in bringing these technologies out. And it's a hard game, and it's getting more and more complex. Sadly, even harder now. We've seen in the last couple of years a dramatic drop-off of interest in companies, US companies, bring in technologies to the European region, and that's sad, because, you know, we have healthcare systems where, you know, technologies are really needed right now to reduce this huge waiting list, certainly that we've got in our healthcare system, the NHS. And just to mention that our healthcare system has, because we're outside of the European Union now, has introduced new programs for devices to come in, pre-regulatory approved devices. So there's openings in our country to bring technologies in. But thank you for all your hard work you do out there, and the missions that you're on, and hope that what I've given in terms of advice of the principles of marketing, benefits to patients, benefits to care providers, benefits to payers, and you don't forget to optimize your selling price, but maximize the access of the technology of the patients that need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'm sure this marketing strategy and the insight are really useful for our startup. But again, what is the strategic advice you have, Jacqueline, from regulation and clinical data for our startup?
As you have heard, there's a lot of stakeholders along the way, and it's a really long journey. Having kind of the alignment from the point go of where is the best places that you will thrive is key to make a success. It's making those progressive marginal gains in the start that is going to keep you alive. Again, for me, having something like the clinical development plan, one of the things that I find often happens with startups is you might get a regulatory approval in one country, and then you try and move to another jurisdiction, and the terminology all of a sudden has everybody in a panic. Generally, we have found they are asking the same things, which also market access is asking for, which your marketing is also asking for, and this is the clinical benefits of your device, but it's just termed a little bit differently. There might be more extensive explanation that you need for it, but the clinical development plan in the beginning, you can put it simply what your clinical needs that you are addressing, what the benefits are, and what are the risks. And then it's very easy to translate if you go to different jurisdictions, what that will look like in different parts of the world. So again, you're not clouding your marketing message. Your market access remains the same, but your technical document that you do put into submission is slightly different, that the translation to the new regulator can understand what value you are adding to the system.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, thank you. Of course, always we need the marketing. We need to plan it as early as we can to reach out. So what's your strategic advice, Claudia, for our startup?
So I think, I've said before, it's obviously as early as possible, but I think it's, sometimes companies are nervous about contacting suppliers early on because of the costs associated with things like that. But I think, we, as I think everyone on this panel I can vouch for, we really want to see success. And if we can help in any way to drive that success, that's what we're here to do. So, it's all about, building long-term relationships to really help drive this. And I think, just us working together, we've known each other for a while and we've worked together for a while. And the amount I've learned, just from working with you two as well. And I think, the benefits to companies of bringing in the right team early on is just, it just can't be overstated, but the really exciting thing is when you do it and you get the right plan in place, the right clinical development plan for now and out into the future, when you hit market, and all the investor conversations are so much easier because you know exactly where you're going, you know exactly what the differentiator is, you know exactly what your price is. But then the differentiation in the market just grows and grows and grows. So it becomes really exciting when you plan effectively up front. So I think that's probably, from marketing, even though everyone thinks, well, we are further down the line, but actually getting it right makes our job so easy, when you come to us later on. So I think, just getting that plan up front makes such a big difference.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Claudia. Really, it was really great discussions and having this expertise here from the clinical data and the regulation point of view, from the market access point of view and the marketing. I'm sure it's a clear message for all our startup, and I hope you benefited from these discussions, guys. Wish you all the best, and let's thank our panelists for this great discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.